Welcome to True Echo, where real stories echo louder than fiction. Today's story is one of quiet strength, unshakable boundaries, and a powerful reminder that peace isn't given, it's enforced. What happens when a retired black officer comes home to rest, only to find his neighbor treating his property like a public resort? This is the story of Tyrone Whitaker. Stay with us, because the moment she crossed the line, he made sure she'd never forget it. Tyrone Whitaker had spent 30 years on the force, and all he wanted now was peace. The kind of peace you could feel in your bones, in the slow hush of Georgia mornings, in the swing of a porch screen door. He'd earned it. Every bead of sweat, every busted knuckle, every graveyard shift he worked in Kansas City, he carried it with him, tucked neatly behind his quiet demeanor and disciplined gaze. He wasn't the kind of man who raised his voice. He didn't need to. His silence spoke louder than most men's rage. After retirement, he moved back home to Riverside Hills in Macon. The same neighborhood where he once rode bikes barefoot and played stickball in the street. He bought a modest brick house and built a pool in the backyard himself, nothing fancy, just honest. A clean rectangle of blue, shaded by 2 crepe myrtles and bordered with poured concrete. He worked hard for it. That pool wasn't just water, it was reward, refuge, and reminder all in one. For the first few weeks, it was paradise. Mornings spent sipping sweet tea, afternoons tinkering with garden tools, and evenings under the stars. His next-door neighbor, Melanie Covington, was polite but aloof. She wore her privilege like a perfume, subtle, lingering, always present. But Tyrone didn't bother her, and she didn't bother him. Until one Monday morning changed everything. Tyrone had just come back from breakfast with an old friend in Warner Robins. The first thing he noticed was the backyard gate hanging open. Then the sound, laughter, water splashing, voices that didn't belong. He followed the noise, moving slow, old instincts still intact. And there they were, 2 teenage girls in bikinis floating in his pool like it was the community center. "Excuse me?" Tyrone asked, his voice calm but direct. One of the girls, barely looking up, said, "Oh, hey. We're almost done." Before Tyrone could answer, Melanie herself appeared, tray of lemonade in hand like she was hosting an open house. "Girls, don't stay too long," she called. Then she noticed Tyrone. "Oh. I didn't realize you were back." His tone didn't change, but something behind his eyes had. "What's going on here?" Melanie waved a dismissive hand. "It's hot. They just wanted to cool off. Figured you wouldn't mind." "I do mind," Tyrone replied. She rolled her eyes, the way someone might swat at a fly. "It's just water. Relax." Then she turned and walked away. The girls didn't even flinch. They stayed in the water like it belonged to them. That night, Tyrone didn't sleep well. The night air outside was warm, but inside Tyrone's house, it felt colder than usual. He sat in silence at his kitchen table, the ceiling fan spinning slowly above, his calloused fingers gripping a pencil he wasn't writing with. His jaw clenched, not out of anger, but out of principle. Melanie had crossed a line, and the worst part wasn't that her guests trespassed. It was the arrogance. The casual entitlement in her voice. "It's just water." That pool wasn't just water. That was years of backbreaking work, the foundation of his peace, his home, disrespected like a public fountain. The next morning, Tyrone installed a stainless steel latch on the gate. Solid. Secure. He followed it up with a motion-activated camera mounted just above his garage. He didn't do it out of paranoia, he did it out of foresight. In his experience, people like Melanie didn't learn the first time. They learned when there were receipts. Later that day, Tyrone called his cousin Denise, a lawyer in Savannah. He explained the situation. "She used your pool without your permission?" Denise asked, voice sharp. "Yep. Had her little guests all up in it. Trespassing. If one of those girls gets hurt, they'll sue you, not her. I know, Tyrone said. That's why I'm documenting everything. Good, Denise said. Don't escalate, but don't sit on your hands either. The next 2 weeks were quiet. No giggling teenagers, no unexpected guests, no lemonade trays. Melanie kept her distance, and Tyrone thought maybe, just maybe, the message had landed. But on a sticky hot Saturday afternoon, as he settled into the couch with a glass of sweet tea and a Braves game on TV, his phone pinged. Motion detected, camera 1. He opened the app and froze. There she was, Melanie Covington. Mid-50s, black one-piece swimsuit, her oversized sunglasses pushed up on her head. She stood in front of the gate, pulled a small tool from her bag, and picked the latch. Click. Tyrone watched her walk in with a smug little smirk like she was claiming lost property. She didn't hesitate. Sat down on his lounger. Opened a book. Dipped her toes in. 5 minutes later, she slid right into the pool like she was at a spa in Hilton Head. Tyrone didn't rush outside. He didn't shout. Instead, he let the camera roll for 23 minutes, recording everything. He backed up the footage. Saved stills. Printed images. Labeled a manila folder, Covington Incidents, Summer 25. That night, he slept fine, not because it didn't bother him anymore, but because now he had evidence. And a plan. Sunday morning, Tyrone ran into Melanie by the curb while checking the mail. Afternoon, she said, offering a half smile. You enjoy the pool? She blinked behind her sunglasses. It's just water, Ty. Don't be so uptight. He didn't respond with anger, just clarity. You step foot in my yard again, we'll have a very different conversation. Melanie rolled her eyes. Whatever. It's not that serious. But to Tyrone, it was exactly that serious. He returned to his house and started digging. County property lines. Trespassing statutes. Community bylaws. He printed, highlighted, and prepared. He wasn't preparing for war. He was preparing for truth. Wednesday, it happened again. 2 different teenage girls, laughing, filming videos, dancing at the edge of his pool like it was their backyard playground. And then, as if on cue, Melanie appeared with a cooler. Tyrone had had enough. He stepped outside, calm but with unmistakable weight in his stride. The girls paused, startled. Melanie. Not a flinch. They'll be gone in a few minutes, she said. No, Tyrone replied. They won't. He pointed to the camera. You've been unlocking my gate. Hosting people. Without permission. I've got 2 weeks of footage, all saved. I didn't host anyone. You brought drinks. You unlocked the gate. Melanie crossed her arms. Why are you making this racial? Tyrone blinked. I didn't say a word about race. I'm acting like a homeowner. He turned to the girls. Grab your stuff. This isn't your yard. It's not a park. The girls scrambled to gather their towels. Melanie stood there, trying to hold on to the last shred of control, but her smile faltered. Being a good neighbor means asking before taking. You didn't. Not once, Tyrone said. You don't understand, she began. No, he cut in. You don't. Stay on your side of the fence. She didn't respond. Just walked off, for once, without a retort. Tyrone went inside, saved the footage again, and labeled it, Trespass, Incident 3. But something told him, it wasn't over yet. Tyrone had always been a man of discipline. In his decades on the force, he'd dealt with chaos, heartbreak, and injustice without ever losing his head. That discipline had served him well, on the streets, in the precinct, and now, in the quiet battleground of his own backyard. By the end of that Wednesday, the folder labeled Covington Incidents, Summer 25 had grown thicker. Stills from his security footage, timestamps, logs of each intrusion, notes from conversations. He backed everything up to both a cloud drive and a thumb drive. It wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. About building a wall of evidence that even Melanie's arrogance couldn't climb over. For the next few days, it was quiet. No party noises, no teenagers hopping fences, no Melanie lounging poolside like she paid taxes on it. Just heat, cicadas, and calm. But Tyrone knew that kind of calm too well. It was the kind that came right before someone tried something even dumber. He was right. It was Sunday afternoon when his phone pinged again. Motion detected. Tyrone sighed, expecting to see maybe a squirrel or a branch swaying. Instead, his screen lit up with a full-blown garden brunch scene, right in his backyard. There was Melanie, standing near his pool in a floral swimsuit cover-up. 3 other women, older, loud, one pouring wine into a stemless glass, another setting fruit on a folding table. There was a Bluetooth speaker on the ground. Music playing. Laughter. A 4th woman sitting in one of Tyrone's chairs like she'd paid a reservation fee. Tyrone stared at the footage. Not in anger. Not even in shock. But in deep, disappointed clarity. They really thought they could rewrite the rules. He didn't storm outside. He didn't shout. Instead, he picked up the phone and dialed Calvin, his neighbor 2 doors down. "You seeing this?" Tyrone asked. "Man, I thought I was hallucinating. Want me to come over?" "No. Just stay on the line." With Calvin on speaker, Tyrone opened the voice memo app on his phone and stepped outside. The music stopped instantly. The women froze. Melanie looked up mid-sip and gave a little shrug. "Oh hey. We figured since you were inside." "You figured wrong," Tyrone said. He walked slowly toward them, surveying the setup. Wine, chairs, speaker, snacks, it wasn't casual. It was coordinated. And it was insulting. "You've officially lost your mind," he said. One woman gave a nervous chuckle. "We're not causing trouble." "You're trespassing," Tyrone replied, looking her straight in the eye. "All of you." Melanie stepped forward. "Ty, don't be dramatic." He looked at her like she was a child who'd been caught with her hand in a jar. "Did you tell them you had permission?" She hesitated. "I said, we'd done this before." "You didn't make it a big deal." "You lied." Now silence swept over the backyard. All that remained was the quiet hum of disbelief. Tyrone pointed toward the house. "You're all being recorded. Video. Audio. Time-stamped. Witnessed." One woman started folding her chair. Another grabbed the fruit tray. Melanie. Still frozen. "If I see you in this yard again," Tyrone said, "I will file charges. There will be no more talking. No more warnings." Melanie opened her mouth but no sound came out. The party packed up in silence, wine half finished, sunglasses askew, flip-flops clapping against concrete. Back inside, Tyrone backed up the new footage. He updated the log. Calvin called back. "That was wild," Calvin said. "You stayed calm the whole time." "She's pushing boundaries," Tyrone replied. "And I'm done giving grace." The next day, he called Denise again. She listened quietly, then said, "You've done everything right. But at this point, you don't need to wait anymore. You've got the case. You've got the footage. You've got the law." Tyrone hesitated. "I'm giving her one last chance. For my own peace." Denise sighed. "Then put it in writing. Final warning. Cease and desist. And lock that gate down tighter." So Tyrone got to work. He created a full evidence packet. Photos, time logs, witness statements, and a signed cease and desist letter prepared under Denise's guidance. Legal. Binding. Clear. Then, without telling anyone, he upgraded the security again. A new magnetic lock on the gate. A trail camera hidden in the hedges. A second camera tucked behind the shed. And a third, small lens embedded under the eave of the porch. He wasn't paranoid. He was precise. And he didn't say a word, not to Calvin, not to his pastor, not to anyone. Then he waited. Saturday came. Hot and sticky. Tyrone took a drive, parked 2 blocks away, and walked back through a side gate Calvin left unlocked. Inside the house, blinds drawn, he watched the live camera feeds on his phone. At 2:37 p.m., she returned. Melanie. Alone. Tote bag on her shoulder. That same pocket tool in her hand. She tried the gate. It didn't open. Then she reached into her bag. Fiddled. Click. The gate creaked open. Tyrone's trail cam blinked to life. She stepped inside, unaware that every angle, front, side, and above, was watching her. She strolled across his yard like it was a beach club, kicked off her sandals, and stretched at the pool's edge. Then, foot in the water, Tyrone stepped outside. Don't move. She jumped like she'd been struck by lightning. Oh, I didn't know you were home. You broke into my yard, he said, raising his phone, the camera still rolling. Again. Her hands went up. Let's not blow this out of proportion. Tyrone shook his head. You broke the lock. That's criminal trespass. I've got 3 angles of it on camera. She went quiet. He handed her an envelope. She opened it slowly, photos, timestamps, the cease and desist letter. What is this? Your final warning, Tyrone said. From my lawyer. Melanie's voice cracked. Ty, come on. No more Ty, he said firmly. You don't respect me. You don't respect my space. But now, you will respect the law. She left in silence. And Tyrone went back inside, ready for the next storm. Because he knew, Melanie wasn't done yet. Tyrone Whitaker had been called every name under the sun during his time in uniform: cop, officer, sir, brother, traitor, sellout, protector, hero. But the one he held tightest to now, in his post-service life, was homeowner. That title didn't come with applause. No medals, no parades. Just dignity. And dignity was something he guarded like a fortress. After Melanie's final warning, he figured, just maybe, that envelope would slam the door shut for good. But deep down, Tyrone knew better. Folks like her didn't apologize. They recalculated. They regrouped. They found another angle. Still, for 3 whole days, the neighborhood was quiet. Not just quiet in noise, but quiet in spirit. No music. No splashing. Even Melanie's house seemed still, blinds drawn tight, her blue sedan untouched in the driveway. Tyrone took the time to enjoy the silence. Watered his tomatoes. Cleaned out the rain gutters. He even fixed the back steps of his porch, something he'd been meaning to do for weeks. For the first time in months, his own yard felt like his again. But Tuesday morning changed everything. The knock on the door was soft, 3 little taps, not aggressive. Tyrone peeked through the blinds and saw them, 2 uniformed officers standing on his front porch. One tall and broad-shouldered, the other slimmer, younger. He opened the door calmly. Mr. Whitaker, the taller one asked. That's me. I'm Officer Bentley, this is Officer Salgado. We got a call from a resident, Ms. Covington. She reported a confrontation between you 2 over the weekend. Tyrone folded his arms. She say anything about why we had a confrontation? They exchanged a look. She said she felt threatened. Come on in, Tyrone said, stepping aside. They entered slowly, eyes scanning the room. Tyrone walked to his laptop on the kitchen table and pulled out a small USB stick. He handed it to Officer Bentley. You'll find everything you need on that drive: video, audio, logs. I've been documenting every incident for over a month. Salgado tilted his head. You've been recording? Tyrone nodded. She's entered my property without permission on multiple occasions. Used tools to bypass a lock. Hosted guests. Lied to neighbors and police. And she did it all while being recorded in high definition. The officers looked at each other, then plugged the USB into Tyrone's laptop. Tyrone clicked through the footage. The first video showed Melanie unlocking the gate. The second showed her floating in his pool, book in hand, smug as could be. The third? The wine party. Full-blown trespass. Finally, the fourth, the most damning, showed her breaking the new magnetic lock with a small tool and entering his backyard alone, just days after receiving a legal cease and desist letter. Whoa, Officer Bentley muttered under his breath. Tyrone stayed silent. Salgado leaned forward. You retired from KCPD, right? 30 years, Tyrone said. Bentley leaned back in his chair. Well, you've done your homework. This is solid. You've covered every angle. Tyrone shrugged. I don't like being tested. Especially not where I sleep. We'll write it up, Bentley said. But between you and me, there's no threat or confrontation here that would hold up in court. You've been measured. And she's been reckless. I appreciate you coming, Tyrone said. I just want it documented. They nodded and left. But Tyrone didn't feel relieved. He felt insulted. Melanie hadn't just disrespected his yard. She tried to paint herself as the victim, to flip the script in a way that could have been fatal in a different context, with a different officer, on a different day. It wasn't just trespass anymore. It was malicious. And that made her dangerous. The next morning, there was another knock at the door. This time, it wasn't police. It was Mr. Waller, a retired school principal and the current president of the Riverside Hills Neighborhood Association. He held a folder and wore a face that said, I'm here because I have to be. Mind if I come in? He asked. Tyrone waved him toward the living room. I'll get right to it, Waller said, settling on the couch. Ms. Covington filed a formal complaint to the board. Said you've been territorial. Intimidating. Claims there's rising tension on the block. Tyrone didn't blink. He reached into the drawer beside his armchair and pulled out a second USB. Handed it over. Waller looked confused. What's this? Evidence. In case the board wants facts instead of feelings. He opened his laptop. As the videos played, Waller grew quiet. His eyes darted between frames, Melanie hosting parties, unlocking gates, breaking locks, sipping wine like she owned the place. He let out a long whistle. She didn't mention any of this. She wouldn't, Tyrone said. Waller rubbed his forehead. I'll file a report. And just between us, she's had complaints before. Small things. Noise. Nasty notes in mailboxes. Minor stuff. But nothing like this. I've kept it clean, Tyrone said. No yelling. No confrontations. Just truth. And you've got a mountain of it, Waller said, closing the laptop. We'll notify her. If she escalates, the board will act. You've done your part. Tyrone nodded. That evening, he sat alone in the backyard. Sunset hanging low. Feet in the water. For the first time in a long time, it was quiet. No splashing. No entitled laughter. Just still air and the slow hum of cicadas. He breathed. Peace, for now. But he knew what came next. Because people like Melanie never just disappear. They regroup. And Tyrone? He stayed ready. 3 days passed without incident. Tyrone found himself slowly exhaling the weight of constant vigilance. He mowed his lawn. He restained the back deck. He grilled a rack of ribs and dropped half off at Calvin's place as a thank you for his quiet support. It felt like life was slipping back into normal. But Tyrone didn't relax completely. He'd seen enough in his career to know when a storm was gathering just past the tree line. On the fourth morning, it came. Not with yelling. Not with another lockpick incident. This time, it was something even rarer: humility. Tyrone opened his door to find Melanie standing there, no sunglasses, no tray of lemonade, no smug grin. Just her. Plain. Quiet. Holding a yellow envelope in her hands. "I came to apologize," she said softly. Tyrone didn't say anything. "I didn't realize how far I'd gone, or how it must have looked," she continued. "I was wrong. You had every right to be upset." Still, Tyrone said nothing. He wasn't being rude, he was waiting. Waiting for the spin. The justification. But. It didn't come. "I talked to the board," she added. "To the police. I realize now this could have gone very differently. If you weren't who you are. And that scares me." She handed him the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. Not typed, not cold. Real pen strokes. Slightly shaky. No excuses. No blame shifting. Just acknowledgement. At the bottom was a short note offering to pay for a new gate lock, and a final line. "From now on, I'll stay on my side." Tyrone looked up at her. "You should have done that from the start." Melanie nodded and turned to leave without another word. He closed the door and stood there, still holding the envelope. It wasn't closure. It wasn't friendship. But it was accountability, and that was enough. The following weekend passed in genuine peace. Tyrone grilled again, this time just for himself, and watched a ballgame without needing to check his cameras. The pool sat still, water glistening under the evening light, untouched except by dragonflies. But what really surprised him wasn't Melanie's apology, it was the neighborhood's quiet reaction. On Monday afternoon, Calvin dropped by again, a foil tray in hand. "Grilled shrimp this time," he said. "You know, some folks thought you were gonna lose it." "I know," Tyrone replied. "That's what she wanted." Calvin nodded. "But you didn't. You kept your cool." That hit her harder than anything else would've. "Yeah," Tyrone said. She expected the stereotype. She got the statute. The truth was, Tyrone had spent his whole life navigating the line between dignity and danger. It wasn't new. But what was new was how his quiet resistance had echoed through the block. That evening, as he walked his usual route past the neighbors' homes, something felt different. People waved longer. A few gave nods they hadn't before. An elderly woman watering her roses whispered, "Glad you handled it like you did." Nobody mentioned Melanie. They didn't need to. She hadn't been seen outside in days. Tyrone wasn't proud of breaking her. He wasn't even sure that's what had happened. But what mattered was this. He drew a line, and held it. That line didn't come with shouting or threats. It came with stillness. With proof. With presence. He'd enforced peace the same way he'd always lived, firm, respectful, and unshakable. And maybe, just maybe, that was the part that rattled her the most. The quiet that followed was no accident, it was the result of pressure applied with precision. Tyrone hadn't lashed out. He hadn't retaliated. He had simply stood his ground until the ground stopped shaking. But even in the stillness, he remained watchful. Not out of fear. Out of discipline. Melanie kept her distance, true to her word. No pool parties, no random drop-ins, not even a wave across the yard. She became a shadow in her own home. And Tyrone? He went back to living the life he'd earned. Morning walks with his coffee. Evening yard work. His lawn was green, his tomatoes plump, and the pool finally had what it was built for, peace. Still, word had spread. A week after Melanie's apology, Tyrone got a knock at his door from someone he didn't recognize. A younger black man in his late 20s, clean-cut, nervous energy radiating from him. "Mr. Whitaker?" the man asked. "Yes. My name's Aaron. I live 3 blocks down. You don't know me, but I heard what happened with your neighbor." Tyrone didn't respond. Just waited. "I just wanted to say thank you for how you handled it. You set a tone. A lot of us, we saw how close that could have gone the wrong way." Tyrone nodded once. "Appreciate that." Aaron continued. "My cousin had something similar happen. Only he didn't have cameras. And no one believed him." "I believe him," Tyrone said, simply. Aaron smiled. "Yeah. I know you do." It was the first time Tyrone realized his actions had echoed beyond his fence line. It wasn't just about defending his property, it was about modeling something many men never got to see. What calm power looked like. What it meant to push back without raising your voice. And what it meant to win without a fight. Later that week, the neighborhood board held their monthly meeting. Tyrone didn't attend, he never did. But Calvin went. And when he came by the next evening, he gave Tyrone the rundown. "They brought it up," Calvin said, sipping from a glass of sweet tea. "Melanie tried to act like she wanted to put it behind us, but Waller shut that down. Told everyone she'd violated multiple bylaws, and that you'd handled it with more grace than anyone else would have." Tyrone raised an eyebrow. "He said that?" "Verbatim," Calvin replied. Tyrone didn't smile. Not exactly. But something softened in his jaw. There was one more surprise before the week ended. Late Saturday afternoon, while Tyrone was brushing down the back steps, he spotted an envelope taped to his mailbox. No return name. No stamp. Just his name in shaky cursive, "Mr. Whitaker." Inside was a short note. "You don't know me. But I live across from Melanie. I saw what she did. I didn't say anything before, but I should have. I was scared of being involved. But watching you stand up, calmly, legally, and without hate, it changed how I see everything. Thank you. For reminding us it's not about yelling. It's about showing who you really are, even when they try to write the story for you." There was no signature. Tyrone folded the note and placed it in the same folder he had once filled with surveillance footage and violation logs. Now it held something else. Respect. Sunday came, and the sky was clear. Warm breeze. Nothing urgent on the to-do list. For the first time in what felt like years, Tyrone put on his swim trunks, stepped outside, and slipped into his pool. Alone. He floated there, arms spread wide, staring at the sky above the crepe myrtles. There were no footsteps behind the gate. No nervous glances toward the fence. Just sun, water, and breath. It wasn't the same pool it had been before. It meant more now. Because this wasn't just a place to cool off. This was a battleground. A quiet one. And Tyrone had won. Not with volume, but with vigilance. Not with fire, but with facts. Not with war, but with walls. Tyrone didn't need a parade. He didn't want recognition. All he ever wanted was to live in peace, to enjoy what he had worked for without having to fight for every inch of it. But the truth is, peace, especially for men like Tyrone, often comes with a price. And too many times, it's a fight just to keep what's yours. But now, sitting in the still water of his own pool, for the first time in years, Tyrone felt weightless. His body rested, but his mind wasn't idle. It turned slowly through everything, through Melanie's first offense, her bold entitlement, the escalation, the police visit, the final apology. Through the people who'd silently watched, unsure if he'd snap. Through the moment they realized he never would. He wasn't the one who needed to change. He was the one who'd been tested. And passed. Later that week, he was in the front yard sweeping the driveway when a car pulled up. A black SUV with tinted windows. The back door opened and out stepped Denise, his cousin, the lawyer from Savannah. "Told you I'd make the drive if she pulled anything else," she said, grinning. Tyrone hugged her. "She folded before I had to." They sat on the porch, sipping peach tea under the late afternoon sun. Denise scanned the neighborhood, kids biking, sprinklers running, someone grilling ribs 3 houses down. "I see what you mean," she said. "This block's peaceful." "It is now," Tyrone said. "You think she'll keep her distance?" "She will," he replied. She got the message. And so did everyone else. Denise looked at him, curious. "You ever think about what might have happened if you didn't have the cameras?" Tyrone nodded. "Every day." She was quiet for a moment. Then added, "It's wild, isn't it? How some people don't respect a fence until you force them to." Tyrone didn't smile, but there was something close to one in his eyes. "It's not the fence," he said. "It's the man behind it." As twilight crept in, and the crepe myrtles began casting longer shadows across the yard, Tyrone stood up and looked across the property line. Melanie's windows were closed. Her porch was empty. That night, as he backed up his final video clips and archived the footage, he did something he hadn't done since the incident began. He deleted the folder. Every clip. Every timestamp. Every snapshot of violation. Gone. Not out of denial. But because it was finished. And because he had something better now. Peace that couldn't be questioned. Sometimes, standing your ground doesn't mean shouting. Sometimes, the strongest voice is the one that stays calm, collected, unwavering, full of truth. Tyrone Whitaker didn't just protect his pool, he protected his dignity. He showed that strength isn't about how loud you are, but how well you hold the line when someone tries to erase it. If someone's ever crossed a line in your life, remember Tyrone. You don't need to explode to be heard. You just need to be ready, focused, and firm. Because peace isn't given. It's enforced. If this story resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. Let someone else know they're not alone. And if you respect how Tyrone handled this, hit that like button, subscribe to True Echo, and stay tuned for more real stories that reflect your strength.